Hey, everybody, welcome. It is time for our week 3 walkthrough. So we're going to take a look at what's happening in week 3, as well as what you are working on. So the items that were due this week were the annotated bibliography, which will help you complete your fiction paper, which is due next week, and the presentation, which will also help you complete the paper that is due this week. I would expect most of you to utilize your presentation as the pre-writing for your paper. I will give you a few reminders about important things that you want to remember for the paper, because of course you're turning it in this week. So let me go ahead and open the course here. And we will take a look at what's going on. I always like to start with the calendar. So we're going to look first here. We are still working on the fiction unit because we are finishing the fiction paper, but you are also moving forward into exploring poetry. So just like the short stories, the poems and a lot of accompanying material are already available in our courses LibGuide. You want to select 2 poems to focus further on. But of course, just like the stories last week, you do want to read through all of them as much as you can. Obviously, you won't pay as close of attention, but when you find 1 or 2 that you really like, focus on those. Now, as far as the poems themselves, they don't have to have anything in common, but many of you might want to focus on comparing and contrasting 2 poems. They could be 2 poems by the same author. They could be 2 poems about the same subject matter. There's a lot of ways that you can utilize comparison contrast. So you might be thinking about that as you are doing the reading. So let's go to the module page. And as reminders, we have the week 3 overview. So finishing the paper, of course, is a big one. And then you're going to write a discussion board about poetry. Okay. The readings and resources contain the LibGuide. Uh-oh. Oh, no, that's right. I put the I put the links back in for the short stories because of course the paper is due this week. And that reminds me of something really important about the paper. One of the things that is true when you are writing about literature specifically is that you do want to incorporate a lot of direct quotations from the story, not necessarily long quotations, but you want to have a lot of what we call direct textual evidence. So that's the other reason I wanted to renew that link here so that you can go directly to the short fiction page. There is a handout, a guide about the formal elements of poetry. We talked about the formal elements of fiction before. And so now we're going to be focusing on a different genre of literature, which has completely different formal elements. When we get to drama, they are very similar to fiction, but poetry has its own set of things. So please read through that. And as I mentioned, you're going to look at all the poems in the LibGuide and choose 2. And then for those 2, you want to read the accompanying bios and any literary criticism. So I'm going to open the LibGuide. You will notice that under poetry, we have Maya Angelou, Phenomenal Woman, Louise Bogan, Medusa, County Cullen, Yet Do I Marvel, Robert Frost, Acquainted with the Night, Robert Herrick, To the Virgins to Make Much of Time, one of my personal favorite poems of all time, Langston Hughes, Theme for English B, John Keats's To Autumn, William Shakespeare's Sonnet 130. Shakespeare, of course, wrote a whole bunch more sonnets. And then finally, another of my all-time favorites, William Wordsworth, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. So, like I said, read all the poems, choose 2 to focus on more specifically. And then when you choose those, you're going to go to the author biography and the critical analysis and read those as well. And this works just like the ones from the fiction unit. You have links to them. These are from the databases. And so if you are citing those sources, those citations are given to you in the citation. The poems themselves, you can click on the little cite button, and our librarians have done those citations for you as well. You don't have the bibliography this week, but you are going to be writing about one of those poems, or maybe both, coming up. So if you wanted to start gathering those citations, it certainly would not hurt. Most of the bibliographies that I've looked at so far have been pretty spot on with the citations, but let me show you one just as a reminder, and how we find the citation. So I'm going to pick I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. We've got a few to choose from here. I'm going to use this one. So let me click on that. As you hopefully remember, you access the cite button right here, and MLA is the standard, so you don't have to go very far. If you are citing something from the web, remember my favorite generator is on scribber.com. So keep that in mind, both as you're finishing the paper and as you are creating your new citations as we go through. Sorry, I am dog sitting and Maverick is having some kind of a fit. I don't know what his is. We have some lectures on close reading poetry, and also researching literature. We've got some additional non-me things about the elements of poetry and analyzing any poem with these steps. I have provided you with a sample of the fiction paper in Word format. So it is Word, so you can use that as a template. I also have a article that I really would love for you to read before you finalize your paper on what makes a good literary analysis paper. That will help you with things like incorporating quotations and all that, because you'll see those. You'll also see that in sample form in the sample paper. So that's it for this week. You've got two things to turn in, as almost always, I think, in our class, because it's such a short semester. But the fiction paper, remember, we went over this assignment sheet. It's got a lot of information in the document itself. So feel free to use this ahead of time and double check it before you turn it in. Okay, so that's your fiction paper. When you are ready to turn it in, you start the assignment and you will use a file. You will add a file from your computer. Okay. The other assignment this week is the discussion board on poetry. And let's take a look at that prompt. As you discuss your two chosen poems, and you will discuss both of them in this discussion board, you may focus on just one in the paper. Who is the speaker in the poem? How would you characterize the voice or the voices, if there's more than one? Is there a perceived audience to whom the speaker is speaking? Are they addressing someone? What are the primary themes in each of the poems? Where does the poem come from in terms of time, place, context? When was it written? Where? What have you learned about the authors using the author biography? Sorry, I have too many words in my head today. And of course, identify any important context in terms of history or culture. Cat in the Rain mentions World War I directly at the beginning of the story. So oftentimes historical context can be really important. And of course, share any additional thoughts on the poets and, of course, any of the articles that were included. Now, just like with discussion board number one, You can write out your response in essay form, or you can videotape yourself doing it. Kaltura inside the discussion board is actually even easier than the kind you've been doing for the presentation. So if you wanted to do a video, it still needs to be a substantial piece. So, I mean, think about it as an essay. But if you would prefer to talk about the poem, I am all for that. I think that's a great idea. You are going to be writing papers throughout the semester. So I've tried to give you a little bit of break on writing for the discussion boards. In order to use Kaltura to incorporate it directly in the discussion board, remember you go to the little plug and choose Embed Kaltura Media, add new. You can utilize the Kaltura capture if you wanted to have the poem up on the screen while you're talking. That might not be a bad idea. You can also do an express capture. You can also, which is just you and your face, your lovely face. You can also record the thing to your computer and then do a media upload. That's fine as well. Most of you are going to want to choose express capture if you are doing the video version. Okay. Once you've done that, it will let you embed it, save and embed. All right. So that's what's happening this week. 2 assignments due by Sunday night, of course. And I would again remind you, you want to do your discussion board as early in the week as possible so that people have a chance to comment on it. You do have a full week afterwards to comment on each other's discussions. But, you know, the earlier the better and the more back and forth we might get. So take care, everybody. Have a great week. I hope you have a pleasant Memorial Day if you are watching this before it or during it. And if not, I hope you had a pleasant Memorial Day. Everybody take care, and I will see you live, live next week.